Good afternoon, distinguished members of the Institute, the President and Chairman of Council, DG of the Institute, and other National Executive, the Chairman of the Zone, and everybody on this webinar. I want to welcome every one of us to this webinar, and with the President in attendance, I think we just go straight into the business of the day, while we still await other people who are going to be joining us also for this webinar. I want to just first of all give us a little tip that as we are joining the webinar, there's an opinion pool that is already there. Your opinion will really count. I want us to just take time out and actually go through those opinion pool and put our response. In the course of the webinar, we'll be discussing on that. So as we go further, let me formally introduce and welcome the President, Chairman of the Governing Council, Chartered Institute of Directors, in person of Alhaji Tijani Borodo, LLM FCIoD, who is present with us in this webinar. So we are grateful to have your presence in your busy schedule. We welcome, sir. Also,
happy to be here.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. We also have the DG, the Director General of the CEO of Chartered Institute of Directors, in person of Mr. Dele Alimi, FCIoD, is also present with us in this webinar. Sir, you're welcome. And we have the zonal chairman himself, who is the main man hosting this webinar, in person of Engineer Innocent Akuve, the MCIOD. He is the zonal chairman of the Portharcourt Zone. Sir, you're welcome to this webinar.
Thank you very much.
Webinar.
Thank you, my pleasure. Thank you.
We also have the chairman of this great planning committee, who has put together this webinar that we are all having. I think this is the first webinar we are having in this zone, and we believe God that this is not going to be the last, but it's going to be the more webinars to come, in the person of Mr. Akuma, Pastor Akuma, Kingsley Akuma. Sir, you're welcome, sir. You're welcome, sir. And again, let me use this opportunity to also introduce, I don't know, I would have loved to keep his name for later, but for introduction, let me do that. We will still call his name. He is the guest speaker of this webinar, in person of Professor Nedo Richard Sole. Sir, you're welcome. You are welcome. You are welcome.
Thank you very much. I appreciate
Thank you. Yes. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Okay, without wasting much time, we want to try to see, because I know the speaker has a lot to deliver for us today, and it's going to be an exciting time for us. So we don't want to waste much time in any of the aspect of the program. We want to go straight to hear the chairman's opening remark, just the chairman's remark for this webinar. Mr. Chairman, over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Kufri, and my very able and amiable second in command. I welcome all of us again to this webinar. I am particularly glad that the President and Chairman of Council is able to be here among us. He did tell me he was going to fly into Algeria, and at the nick of time, he just checked into his hotel, and here we are. So we're really very pleased, and I'm sure everybody will want to hear his voice very soon, and that will be the DG. Alimi, thank you again for always being there for us, branches and all members. We appreciate you a lot. And just like the moderator has said, the chairman of the organizing committee, the program organizing committee, Pastor Casey Akuma, your team, we do greatly appreciate you. Let me spare time on introduction, but just to say that it is important we understand what it's all about. The CIoD Port Harcourt Zone actually covers the Southeast and the South-South, and we are doing this to encourage people to key into what we're doing, understand what we're doing. Not tomorrow, when things begin to take shape, Nigerians will begin to complain they are not aware that there is CIoD. I'm sure someday, if you're not a member of this institute, you may not serve on public board. I'm very sure it's going to happen someday. So I encourage a lot of our people across the zone we are covering, and indeed in the entirety of Nigeria, to identify with this institute because it's an institute that will make you a better manager of resources, a better manager of human capital, and whatever you can think of, especially because once you are in line with corporate governance, every other thing falls into line. And I will just leave that because I know that when the president gives his address, he's going to touch on the relevance and importance of what we're doing today and who we are. So on that note, I would want to humbly invite Mr. President, the President of the Chartered Institute of Directors and Chairman of the Governing Council, to please give us his address, and then we'll go back to the moderator. Thank you.
Firstly, I want to commend the chairman of Portharcourt branch. Better late than never, let me put it that way. You know, engineer is a man of several caps. And since I was in Portharcourt at the beginning of my presidency, we had a lot of promise with him, but I know he's a very busy person. But I'm really, really pleased that we are doing this webinar, and particularly the topic that we are covering today. So on that note, engineer, thank you for this and members of your team for what you have done and continue to do the good work. Now I have my remarks for you, and simply they are this. They are formal, and I have this responsibility. Now, the members of the Governing Council of our institute here are present. Distinguished guest speaker, Professor Nordem, the chairman of Portharcourt branch, Engineer Innocent Akuve, the DG, Mr. Dele Alimi, our distinguished moderator, Vice Chairman Portharcourt Zone, Mr. Kufe, fellows and members of Chartered Institute of Directors Nigeria, valued participants, guests, and associates. It is with great pleasure and honor that I join the chairman and members of the Portharcourt branch of our institute to welcome you to this webinar, which addresses a very critical and germane theme, namely value orientation, implications for governance and economic development. I'm happy to see a group of diverse and accomplished business and public sector leaders united by a shared commitment to advancing the values that will propel good governance in the country. Your participation underscores the importance of the discussions and signify a collective resolve to address the critical issue of national development. I specifically recognize our distinguished guest speaker, Professor Nordem, Professor of Operational Management, Faculty of Management Sciences, University of Portharcourt, whose expertise and insight in the field of operational management have earned a wide acclaim across the world. We're truly privileged to have you with us. I will look forward to hearing your valuable perspective during this session. I also like to commend the chairman, Engineer Akuve, and members of the branch for the selfless and tireless efforts that have been put in making this event a reality. Your dedication and contributions are deeply appreciated. Today's discussions is both timely and necessary as we collectively seek solutions to reshape the narrative of governance and accelerate economic progress and development in our country, Nigeria. The concept of value orientation is a fundamental pillar for achieving the Nigeria we all aspire and desire to see. A nation where integrity, transparency, and accountability are inherent in governance, and where economic and social development lifts every citizen across board. Values are not merely abstract ideas. They are the driving force behind societal transformation and the compass guiding decision-making at every level of governance and businesses. Governance thrives on values, integrity, accountability, and respect for the rule of law from the very foundation of effective governance. Without this, our private and public institutions falter, trust erodes, and progress is stunted. Value orientation in governance requires a fundamental shift towards ethical leadership, fairness in decision-making, and steadfast commitment to serving the common good. For Nigeria, the implications are very, very clear. A value-driven governance system will not only strengthen our institutions, but also create an environment where citizens and leaders alike act in the national interest. It is a call for people in leadership positions to embrace their role as stewards of collective resource and for citizens to actively participate in holding those in power accountable. Just as governance is shaped by values, so too is its economic development. Values such as hard work, innovation, collaboration, and ethical practices are the fuel that powers sustainable growth. Economic development that lacks a foundation of sound values is unsustainable, inequitable, and prone to cycles of boom and bust. Governance and economic development are deeply intertwined, and value orientation offers a unifying thread between the two. Strong governance creates a stable and predictable environment that attracts investment and fosters innovation, while a vibrant economic enhances the capacity of government to deliver essential service and improve the quality of life of all citizens across board. The challenge before us, therefore, is to ensure that the value shaping our governance system and economic activities are aligned with the principles of sustainability, inclusivity, and shared prosperity. This requires a coordinated effort from all stakeholders, government, private sectors, civil society, and general public. The task of value reorientation is neither simple nor quick, but it's a task that must be undertaken with urgency and resolve. Each of us has a role to play in this journey. For public leaders, it is about setting the tone from the top and exemplifying these values we wish to see in the society. For the private sector, it is about adopting practices that prioritize long-term sustainability over short-term gains. For citizens, it is about embracing a culture of civic responsibility and actively contributing to the betterment of our communities. As we engage in this important conversation today, I charge you all to reflect on what value orientation means to you and how you can contribute to this cause. Let us approach this webinar not only as opportunity to learn and exchange ideas, but as a platform to inspire action and foster collaboration. As I conclude, I want to leave you with a challenge that goes beyond words. As directors, you have unique opportunities to champion the values that define the Institute, the values of impact, the acronym IMPACT, IMPACT, meaning integrity, meritocracy, professionalism, accountability, and probity, and customer-centric teamwork. These are not just aspirational ideas, they are the guiding principles that shape everything we do at the Chartered Institute of Directors Nigeria. Let the values of the Institute inspire you as you lead in your respective domains. Embrace professionalism by holding yourself to the highest standards of excellence. Uphold integrity by making decisions that reflect honesty and accountability. Foster innovation by seeking creative solutions to the challenges of your organization. And champion inclusivity by ensuring that your governance practices create opportunities for all. Let this webinar ignite your resolve to lead with courage and conviction, embedding these values into every facet of your work and your life. The impact you make as a value-driven director will ripple through your organizations, your sectors, and ultimately the Nigerian nation. Finally, I thank you all for being part of this important dialogue. Your presence here reflects your commitment to redefining governance and driving economic progress. Together, let us seize this opportunity to engage, challenge, and collaborate in pursuit of shared vision. I wish us all a productive and transformative session. Thank you very much for listening. Let's the webinar begin. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. President. And once again, we want to welcome everyone to this wonderful webinar. Right now, you can, on your screen, I guess you can see the poll, the opinion poll being published. I just want us to just take some time out and just go through it and let's put in our response. I don't know, can we all see the poll? Can we see the poll? Yeah, I want to believe we all can see the poll being published. Let's take some time and go through the response. The first one, let me just run through them briefly, so swiftly. The first one's on value reorientation poll. Do you believe governance is the biggest barrier to Nigeria's economic development? You just take your response. I think we'll all talk about it. The guest speaker will also do more justice to that. The second one says, how will you rate the quality of governance in Nigeria today? Can we see them? Just take your own, just click your own. The third one is, in your own opinion, which area of governance needs the most urgent reform in Nigeria? Yeah, these are directors talking, and at least we all have our opinions to give. So please just click on your opinion, click on your own. The fourth one is, which sector do you believe holds the key to Nigerian sustainable economic development? No, we talk about developing Nigeria, developing Nigeria. Which sector do you believe holds the key? Is it agriculture? Is it technology? The introduction of AI and co? Is it the oil and gas sector that we've depended on for many years? Or should we move to manufacturing? Is it creative industry that is actually putting the country in different parts of the continent, at least giving us a place? Or is it on service delivery? Which of them do you really think holds the key to Nigeria's development? While we are actually filling up that poll, I want to use this means to also recognize the presence of the second Vice President, Chartered Institute of Directors, Nigeria. She's present with us, Mrs. Oyabula. Ma, you're welcome, ma. You're welcome. It's always great to have, when you have National Secretariat in meetings like this, it's a great encouragement. Madam, you're welcome. Okay. And also, let me also acknowledge the presence of the ESCO, who are the zonal ESCO and the staffs of the Secretariat, who are also present in this webinar. I can see a lot of people are joining in from different parts. It's going to be a wonderful time. I just want us to just look through the pool. Okay, now, at this junction, we want to bring in the guest speaker. But before we bring in the guest speaker, the result of the pool is already out here. I'm going to just read the result of the pool because we believe the guest speaker is going to do more explanations, going to talk more in this light for us to see and understand. From the pool so far, yeah, from the result we have here, the first one says, do you believe governance is the biggest barrier to Nigerians' economic development? Well, 87 people said yes, it is. 4% says no, while 9% they were not sure. So I think the guest speaker has to explain why these 87 people actually are telling us this, that governance is the problem. The second one is, the second question here says, how will you rate the quality of governance in Nigeria today? Well, without looking at the answer to the poll, I guess everybody has the answer already. Nobody actually, 0% said excellent, 4% said good, while 30% says fair, while 61% says poor. Well, these 4% that say very poor, I don't know. Don't you like us again in Nigeria? 4% says very poor. The third question in our pool says, in your own opinion, which area of governance needs the most urgent reform in Nigeria? 30% says anti-corruption. 28% says public service delivery. 9% says electoral integrity. 13% says rule of law. Well, 22% says security and stability. While to the fourth question in our pool, it says, which sector do you believe hold the key to Nigeria's sustainable economic development? 30% says agriculture. 17% don't believe in AI. They said 70% says technology. 13% says oil and gas. 26% says manufacturing. 4% says creative industry, while 9% tells us of service delivery. Well, we're going to look into these things, and when we listen to the keynote, the address of our speaker, he's going to tell us his own part, and he's going to tell us why those things are like the way we all said. But for me to introduce, before I introduce the speaker, I would like to say just some few things about the speaker for those of us who don't know him, so we get to know and appreciate his person. We are honored to welcome Professor Richard Solon-Nedon as a guest speaker at the Chartered Institute of Directors Portharcourt Zone webinar. Professor Nedon is a highly respected professor of production, operational research, and quantitative management at the University of Portharcourt. He has over 20 years of experience in academia, research, and strategic consulting. He holds a PhD in production operations management and has an extensive portfolio of scholar publications that focus on applying quantitative method to drive efficiency and informed decision-making in both public and private sector. Today, Professor Nedon will be speaking to the timely and thought-provoking topic, value reorientation, implication for economic growth and economic development. This subject aligns perfectly with the Chartered Institute of Directors' mission to promote ethical leadership and sound corporate governance. With his deep insight into operational strategy development, economic and organizational behavior, Professor Nedon will explore how reshaping social value can foster sustainable economic transformation in Nigeria and beyond. He is a member of several professional bodies, including the Operational Research Society UK, the Institute of Operational Research of Nigeria, and the Academy of Management Nigeria. His impact extends beyond the lecture halls through his consultancy work with major firms and his previous leadership as acting head of department at the University of Portharcourt. We are privileged to have him with us, and we look forward to an enlightening session. Ladies and gentlemen, special guests, I want at this junction, please join me as I welcome Professor Richard Nedon as he takes his speech.
Good afternoon, gentlemen and ladies. I want to say that this is a very rare privilege, giving me to deliver my speech on such a very sensitive topic. The topic is value reorientation, implication for economic growth and economic development. Like I said, it's a lecture, delivered to the Chartered Institute of Directors Nigeria, and I count myself to be very, very privileged, to be doing the delivery this afternoon. Character, we say, defines values, and values defines destiny. That's my quote. Values are like lighthouses. They are signals giving us direction, meaning, and purpose. That's a quote from Recruiter's Journal. Just by way of giving background to the discussion, nations all over the world desires economic growth, and thus work towards achieving economic growth and development, because it is one of the determinants of the progresses of all nations. What differentiates the advanced and less developed nation is the level of their growth and development. Economic growth is a long-term rise in the country's capacity to supply increasingly diverse economic goods. Diverse economic goods to sorry, 1 minute. The vast economic group goes to its population. That quotation is taken from Simon Kuznets, as cited in Hale and Oyema, 2001. It is also seen as the steady process by which the productive capacity of an economy is increased over time to bring about rising level of economic income. That's Todaro, 1977. All these two definitions have given borders on economic growth. But the question becomes, what is economic development? Because the topic borders on economic growth and economic development. So having given these two definitions of economic growth, what then constitutes economic development? Economic development, on the other hand, is a process by which an economy achieves greater increase in the output of goods and services and make sorry, I'm having a little challenge from my end here. Like I was saying, I'm having some challenges here. Okay, like I was saying, economic development, on the other hand, is a process by which an economy achieves greater increase in the output of goods and services and other positive changes in various aspects of an economy's national life. That is cited, or rather that quotation is also taken from the works of Hale and Oyema. Economic growth and development are integral to the life of all nations. Why is it integral to the life of all nations? Because it raises the standard of living. In essence, if an economy is growing, the standard of living will also increase. It guarantees rise in per capita income. If the economy is doing well, if the economy is developing, then of course there will also be a rise in per capita income. It guarantees an increase in GDP, provide prospect for reduction of poverty, and become instrument for acquiring power and prestige. When an economy is doing well, the world all over raises that economy to be very powerful and prestigious. The critical economic desire is calculated to achieve through various means. These desires of economic growth, that is, the aim of all nations, can be achieved through several means, through several mediums. But within the philosophical, the sociological, and structural sphere, it is seen or calculated to be achieved through value orientation and the implication in our national life. In that sense, this economic growth and development that is the desire of all nations, can be achieved through several means. But within the sphere of philosophy, within the sphere of sociology, we believe that this desire of economic growth can be achieved through value and value orientation. Then what constitutes value? Values are fabric of individual behavior and character that lay a foundation for moral qualities in the society and thus enhance harmony. I repeat, I said values are fabrics of individual behavior and character that lay a foundation for moral qualities in a society and thus enhance harmony. Values are principles, practices, norms, and standards of individuals and human conduct and other life phenomena in a given society or setting. That perception, that particular perception, is by Onyekbere, 2023. These values shapes the human character, behavior, and conduct and perception in any given society. They influence perspective of law. The values that the society holds influence the perspective of law, both customary and formal sources of law and policies thereof. If it is true that they actually shape character, behavior, and conduct from individual in the given society, it is safe, therefore, to say that it defines the quality of the leadership of any given nation. It is anchored on moral principles and accepted by a large population of the people, and it manifests in the socio-cultural and political economy of any nation. The kind of value the kind of value a society holds manifests in the leadership, and that value shapes how the society moves. What becomes the value system, what the society prizes as being being regarded as something very high, is manifested by its values. This means that the premium on these values, the intensity of all the regards for them, can be viewed from the leadership lens of a nation. Since this leadership, since this value is very integral and defines how people perceive things, how people behave, it also follows that if leadership is not doing well, it can be seen that the value system of that nation is also grossly defective. The character and behavior of leadership shows how these values are valued, prized, and regarded or otherwise. These values do not only play a critical role in the socioeconomic growth, but how political and economic policies are made and prioritized, and thus our national growth and progress and development in all dimensions. In essence, if our values are doing well, of course, there will be national growth. If we have high regard for our values, there will be growth, there will be progress, and there will be development in all ramifications of the economic life. Character is important in the quality of leadership. A leader without this mold, these value molds, will provide defective leadership devoid of moral principles. But before we do that, what are the different perceptions or views of people as it pertains to issues of value? Whereas the etymology of the word value comes from Greek word agios or asias, meaning ethics, which is also the same thing as code of right and wrong, or agiology in English, standing as a substitute or synonym for ethics. Others view it from other perspectives, as cited in the work of Ugu and Ziomana, 2024. Enna sees value, another author sees value as anything the civilized and rational mind cherishes, esteemed, value previously, and have an inclined attitude for. But because of the different views on the concept of morality or right, which is the very foundation of this world, different philosophical thought, schools, and theories have had to examine the conceptual format of the subject as cited by the scholar I said before. Because of those different views, several persons have viewed values from different perspectives, and we'll examine those perspectives. One is value as natural. In essence, we also look at it as naturalism. This view sees value as anything that is good or desire, or desires that are good in one state of nature and thus produce pleasure. In essence, what this particular perception posits is that whatever is valued, whatever is desired by an individual, that becomes value. Whatever is regarded, whatever gives pleasure to an individual in a state of nature is what is regarded as value. In essence, if in a particular state of nature, one takes desire in eating or sleeping, that becomes his value. Yet others see value as anti-natural, anti-naturalism. This view holds that value can only be recognized by intuition. Value only belongs to the inner world, and this can be identified from such realm and not what appeals to a particular desire. In essence, this particular perception, is anti the naturalism. The view of this particular school of thought is that whatever you are judged to be valuable from your innermost, from your state of intuition, is what is regarded as value. In essence, whatever you do from the inside that appeals to your conscience is value. Then yet, there's also another perception that has to do with what we call the prescriptism. This view sees value as things used to prescribe a course or action, thus seen as mere persuasion. In this context, whatever somebody does, as whatever is prescribed as a way of persuading somebody to do a particular thing, is also seen as value. Then value as motive, this is motivism, This view sees value as being defined by the motive, aim, or purpose of which it was set. If our target is to have this webinar and we are having it, then of course that is regarded as value by the position of the motivism. In essence, what was the motive of the whole of this whole essence is to deliver this lecture on value. So as we are doing that now, since it's appealing or fulfilling the motive, then of course all that is also regarded as value. Then the next other view is value as based on situation or situationalism. This view believes that the situation the actor finds himself defines whether his actions are right or not. In essence, whatever situation a particular author finds himself defines whether that thing that is done is right or is not right. The reason is because, you know, what one desires at a particular point in time defines whether, or the situation one finds himself at a particular point in time defines whether that thing is right or wrong. In essence, the situation defines the meaning that is given to value. Scholars in their views, based on the different theories and perception on the subject matter, as evident in some of the cited works, believe that values are not universal. If you look at what we have examined so far, you see that there are different perceptions as regards to the subject of value. So based on that, some persons believe that values are universal, whereas others believe that values are not universal. In essence, others believe that value is something that cuts across the entire globe, whereas some other scholars believe that it's a relative concept. And to that extent, therefore, you know, it is believed that whatever becomes value or is defined as value to a particular person, you know, may not be seen as value to another group. You know, in the light of the fact of this cultural and ideological variance between the Western world and African communities in general, and Nigeria in particular, I will toe the line of the relativism in the view and the perception of value. You know, this discussion is situated within the context, within the African context. And to that extent, therefore, I will not adopt the universal perception, but I will look at value from, you know, a relative context. Because as an African, what becomes valuable to us may not be the same thing to the Western man. The ideological view of society and the actions of an African is that of communism and humanism. As an African man, we believe in communal living. We believe in humanism. You know, it is unlike the Western world where they believe in exploitation, where they believe in socialization, where they believe in exploration. For an African man, we believe that we live for one another. And to that extent, we believe in communalism. To an African man, therefore, value is seen as anything that promotes that communal living and promotes humanism. To put this discourse in proper perspective and to give it a direction, I would define value as principles, practices, norms, and standards of individual and human conduct and other life phenomena in a given society or setting. These principles, practices, norms, standard of conduct define the moral views, perception, and qualities, personality, psyche, psychology, sociology, disposition, temperament, nature, and other behavioral makeup of an individual. In essence, it is our value that defines the complete disposition of an individual. It attempts to explain the whys, the whens, and the hows people behave, or the reason why they do what they do. From this definition, one will see that the concept of value does not have substance without the element of morality, which is, in the African sense, is cosmology, is culture, and is religion. This shows that the subject of value within the African context in general and Nigeria in particular has its root in African cosmology, culture, and religion. The interaction within the Nigerian sociocultural, economic, political, and ideological space produced some national values. What were these our national values? These our national values were justice and fairness, truth, equality, hard work, dignity of labor, empathy, honesty, obedience, sincerity, responsibility, and liberty. The adherence to these shared values has its benefit, which includes societal harmony, rational decision-making, sense of commitment, and sense of brotherhood, or oneness, or togetherness, and national pride and patriotism, among others. Now, having looked at the different perception by different scholars as it defines value, and the position I have taken, as far as, giving value a perspective or a foundation. How has this manifested in the contemporary Nigerian society of today? How has this value? What is the position? What is this value? How have we gone with this value? What is the real manifestation of this value in the Nigerian society today? That is what I call existentials of value in Nigeria. Every society, community of human or human setting have their shared value. These shared values define conduct, practice, and standard, and thus mode behavior and character. Whether universal or relative, what essential phenomenon of value is that it modes behavior and character and shape human conduct and set moral standards and principles and thought systems and ideology of a people. In the past, Nigeria public officers stayed true to these values and held them there. Today, the sense of value that was the core of Nigerian ideology in the First Republic is grossly eroded. Modernization, socialization, greed, idea of individualism, and self-centeredness, exploitation, and materialistic nature of public servants has contaminated all sense of value to Nigerian politicians and public servants, as well as youth in their social engagement. Today, corruption, fraud, and materialism is celebrated and thus valued as an accepted norm or way of life. Politics is now a means to wealth accumulation rather than service to the people. Values are no longer conceived as the ideals. The desire to get engaged in pleasure, leisure, and get rich overnight has gotten our youth into social vices, cyber crimes, and outright armed robbery because society no longer value hard work attached with the sense of decency. Social values are no longer defined by hard work and thus encourage the same, but wealth accumulation without a defined source. This has not only contaminated our political and social legal space, but also religious space, and thus temple of God, through deceitful messages for fat tithes, first fruit, and offering. Corruption and blatant disregard to the core values that define the Nigerian socio-political culture has assumed a schizophrenic dimension. This value erosion manifests in all facets of life in Nigeria. The political space is polluted. The process of attaining political position is a do or die thing. There is no accountability or stewardship for political office holders or public servants. Political positions are means to wealth. Political economic policies and actions are not about the people or the state, but about self. Consciences are dead. Civil and public servants, enabled by the political power play and lack of accountability and discipline, devise means of making legal wealth from the system. All of these breed a new culture of kleptocracy, illegal wealth accumulation, and squanderism, exacerbated by a culture that celebrates this ill-gotten wealth and reward them with chieftaincy titles and other accolades. This defies our value of truth, justice, hard work, selflessness, and honesty. This pervasiveness of our national values has equally exuded its impact on the philosophical, psychological, ideological, and sociocultural space. Cybercrime is on the rise. Human trafficking, prostitution, rituals, kidnapping and selling of human parts, armed robbery are equally on the rise, and other social vices. There is no longer dignity of labor or reward for hard work. One of the national ideologies that was hitherto the encouraging cliche among the working youths. The legislators are mere stooge or appendices to the executive arm. They do not regulate the excesses of the executive arm, nor put them to check. They do whatever is the bidding of the executive in exchange for economic gains. They do not represent the people, rather protect the executive. The temple of justice is desecrated. The judiciary has been captured. It's no longer the last hope of the common man, but a tool by politicians to put seal on their nuisance, on just actions and practices. The executive at different levels, not only do they not have regard for their followers and the led, they do not have any sense of public accountability or respect for the sanctity of the Constitution, nor the rule of law. They run the office as their primordial estate. Religion is not exempted. Faith-based institutions go on and above to extort money from the congregation with the message of materialism and make the congregation their perpetual slave and conduit pipe for their self-enrichment. They engage in unwholesome practices, including lies, idolatry, magic, and other paganist practices to have power and convince their followers of miracles and wonders. There's gross sociocultural decay. Sociologies and interactions or actions of people are no longer that which promote national ideology or individual interest, melted or conflicted in criminality, social biases and menace, materialism, and ill-will acquisition and accumulation. Our sociologists are without ideology, and that has affected our philosophy. This value deficit in our sociological structure has affected our political and economic policies and growth. How did we get here? You know, I had to ask that question, how did we get here? Because as a child, I didn't experience the kind of thing I'm experiencing in our social space today. So I asked the question, how did we get here? A review of the political economy of Nigeria shows that a lot of factors explain the value deficit. One is the military intervention. The nationalists and early administrators of the country had high regards for what constituted the national values and its impact on economic growth and development. They abhor everything and anything that will contaminate their name and had high regards for our shared values. The administration was about service and not self, and thus the actions were about the collective growth of the nation. They respected the supremacy of the Constitution and accountability. The rude interference of the military that ended the First Republic and other subsequent military takeovers breeded corruption and the lack of accountability for public office holders. This corruption and lack of accountability for public office holders that define the military rule negatively impact on the psychology and the administrators of the system and the political culture of the nation. After the military rule, this culture of corruption and lack of public accountability already implanted in the national socio-political psyche redefine governance and public administration, and that has negatively affected our value system. The second thing that explains that the shift from agricultural-based economy to oil-based economy, the shift discouraged hard work as was required in agriculture to a consumption-based economy. All the productive factors that defined our dignity was deactivated and thus impinged on our dignity of labor and the reward for hard work evident in the agricultural activity that was hitherto our mainstay. Number 3 factor is cultural factor. The attendant problem of neglect of agriculture for oil, treated with it, lack of hard work and dignity of labor. These actions led to the neglect of our national ideology. The culture of self or individualism as against the communalism started defining the political economic landscape. This was further enhanced by the celebration of ill-gotten wealth without interrogation of the source and means. People who publicly display or celebrated wealth without any defined source or means were given chieftaincy titles. Alas, a new culture of materialism was building. Without any punitive measure or corresponding disciplinary measure for every public servant, the culture of wealth accumulation without any known or defined source was enshrined in our social cultural structure. The younger generation, though not complaining, was observing and thus adopted it as an accepted norm. This structure was enhanced by a new breed of politicians who had now occupied the political space. Their disposition was characterized by wealth accumulation and public display, squandalization, and other forms of spending spree, patronizing only foreign goods. For luxuries they enjoy and for the ease of access to funds through corrupt practices, they were willing to do anything and everything to get into political offices. The fourth factor that explained where we are today is the sociocultural and ideological shift. The actions and inactions of politicians and the seeming acceptance by the society resulted in a shift in the sociology and the ideology of the youth. Those that could not get into political positions to display affluence resorted to cyber crimes and other forms of social vices to fill among. The optics now change towards the acculturalization of baser emotions and actions. 5 is the moral decadence, unemployment, and economic hardship. Though not justifiable, economic hardship, unemployment, and deficit in moral values also account for the value deficit. Man must work anyway, which way. Whether or not there is work, with little regards to moral values that either does not exist anymore or dead, and unemployment in the face of severe economic hardship, people get into all kinds of crimes and vice, such as outright stealing, armed robbery, prostitution, drug addiction, trafficking, human rituals, kidnapping, human trafficking to elk at a living and get meals and cater for their families. Socialization and trends. People just make content. Socialization and get socialized and get involved in trending issues. Do things that negate the national values and the moral principles. Africa has its culture and its cosmology. This is one of the sources of the values. And anything that contradicts this cultural heritage and our identity because of the socialization happening trend contaminate our values. Today in the cyberspace, you see Nigerians showing their cleavages and nakedness because of trends and socialization. It wasn't like that in the ancient past. Then national ideology. Our institutions of learning and other public structure do not teach or emphasize the national ideology and values enough that has a hold on the mind and defines how things are perceived and regarded. Today, civic education is no longer taught in school. The spirit of nationalism is dead. The pupils no longer have whom they like to emulate or the desire to show or demonstrate patriotism. Or the desire to demonstrate patriotism has fizzled out of the mind of the younger generation. As frustrating as this political economic account of the value deficit is and has manifested in our sociology, philosophy, ideology, political, and sociocultural space, how do the Nigerian nation state wriggle out of this dilemma? This brings us to the nucleus or the subject matter of the discussion. Having examined all of the things that I have listed so far, question becomes, how do we get out of this? And that is what brings us the subject matter, value reorientation for economic growth and development. That's the way forward. One, for us to get out of that, we must look at our civic education. Civic education must be taught in schools as compulsory and mandatory at all levels. This will enshrine in pupils and youth patriotism and communism. Also, the citizens' right and the tenets of the Constitution and knowledge of good and evil, including privileges, will be learned and known. 2, conduct a character evaluation for public office holders and potential ones as a condition for retention and promotion. Every public servant, there should be a character evaluation for him to be promoted or for him to be retained. Then 3, election into public office must be based on integrity and report on past antecedents on all fronts. This must be a basic condition for selection. There must be, as a matter of right, accountability for public office holders and public servants. There must be a general orientation for public, private, political office holders, and this must be engraved in our political, sociocultural, ideological, sociological, and philosophical engagement. There must be capital punishment for corrupt political and public office holders, just as is done in China. At least that will instill some fear into people. All suspicious ruling should be re-examined and put to scrutiny. And where it is established that the judgment and rulings were manipulated or bought, the jury should not only be debarred, but subjected to capital punishment as a determinant to others, given that the justice system is the conscience of any democratic society. Public display of affluence must be discouraged seriously. Any affluence without known source should be reported by friends, family, and associates for investigation. If this is not done by friends, family members, and associates, there should be community prosecution if caught. In essence, everybody that relates with them should be caught. Faith-based institutions must be mandated to preach values and morality as standard for righteousness and not materialism and falsehood to manipulate and extort followers. Any pastor, imam, or traditionalist that is caught in an unwholesome practice calculated to contaminate morality and national value should be disbanded and prosecuted. The ideology of hard work and dignity of labor should be enshrined and reinstitutionalized. We must create more jobs opportunity through robust economic policies to engage our teeming youth so they can get into paid employment and shun social biases. We must create and deepen youth employment programs as well as entrepreneurship and soft loan scheme for unemployed youth to access so that they can start up their own businesses. We must recalibrate agriculture as the mainstay of the economy to create more food supply and employment. After all, agriculture is calculated to generate about 30% of the total GDP to Nigeria. Our national values and ideology must be engraved in the entrance of government parastatals, government agencies and ministries, as well as public policies and centers as a constant reminder to public servants, politicians, and youth. As a matter of compulsion, all private firms should be instructed to display our national values. This will serve as a constant reminder to all citizens, irrespective of their faith, religion, and belief, of the creed that defines our core values. We must create programs and avenues that will divert youth attention from internet and cyber fraud and other forms of cyber crimes to IT and other cyber-based programs like cybersecurity, computer engineering, software development, and engineering, programming, and other forms of legitimate internet trading and commerce that will provide them with income and thus grow our youth in legitimate cyber-based engagement and thus impact positively on economic growth and launder our image in the international community. There should be internet and cyber-based program aimed at diverting youth attention from crime to legitimate income. Any engagement in any trend that contaminates our value and sociocultural dignity, like exposing our cleavages, our nudity, and body advertisement to gain traction and encourage or prop prostitution, should be fined or outrightly prohibited. Hard work and merit should be rewarded. There should be periodic review of the asset base of politicians and public servants. The constitution should be seen and treated as supreme, not only in principle, but also in practice. Every person should be an active citizen. Everyone should be held to tests, and accountability in public and private life should be the norm. We must cultivate in all citizens the need to support others for community growth. The reorientation and implementation of the highlighted is the price we must pay to get back our value. The implementation of this recommendation will engrave in our national psyche the need and importance of this value. These suggestions are calculated not only to reduce wastages, block corruption, bring back the spirit of citizenship, patriotism, and commitment, but also impact on productivity and economic growth and development. We must first identify that we ruin ourselves, for no man can be ruined safe by his own hands, actions, deed, character, and approaches. This realization will bring to bear the need for reorientation and towards the application of this prescription to save our national values and ideology. I'm inclined to hold here, therefore, that if we must enhance our economic growth and development within the context of this discourse, centrally on the subject of value, we need to take leap from the state of affairs in our social, cultural, sociological, and economic political space to a more pragmatic reorientation of our youth to save our nation. Our politicians, public servants, and all must view value within the context of the golden rule as evident in Matthew 7:12. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Thank you.
Wow, Prof, that was a wonderful delivery. It was a wonderful delivery. I guess at this time, we're going to take some questions. But Prof, before we take these questions, I really listened to everything you wrote, you said about value orientation. But I want to ask a question, Prof. Several times you mentioned how we got here. But let me just chip in this one. Let me hear your thoughts. Now, back in the days, let's say in the days of my fathers, we are boasting and we are proud about the civil service. They were civil servants mostly. And truly looking at that time, we were told that the naira and the naira was more powerful than the dollar. So it was easy, being a civil servant, it was easy for our fathers to pay fees, pay the children's school fees of those of them that went to school. And besides, if you really look at those days also, many of the people who are graduates and professors and doctors, they were actually benefactors from community effort. Community sent them to school, they achieved something. Now, at that time, it was easy for them to manage their finance and also work with good values. But now look at the present day Nigeria that we are in, Prof. Somebody working for 35 years, after 35 years, he gets a television. If they give him a television or they give him maybe they give him a blender as long service award. And he has bills, no school fees, school fees. Look at the school fees in front of him that he has to pay. There's no community developing, no community coming together to raise children. Everybody has their problem. Do you think that that's not part of the way the pressure and the pleasure of life that people see? Don't you think it is part of the reason why there's distortion in our value? Because imagine the young child seeing the father work for 35 years and coming back home with television, 123-inch TV or 32-inch TV on a blender, and long service award after 35 years. And that person is actually coming to enter that same system where the reality of his present day does not actually depict how it was good in these in the good old days, we say. Don't you think that those things alone have a way of affecting the judgment of people in their course of work? Why there's a shift in our value system? Prof, it's up to you.
Yeah, it is. It does. I remember as a growing child, that I used to tell my students this a lot of times, that my father, I grew up in town, and my father used to give me 1 naira note to go and buy rice, 4 cups of rice for 1 naira. I remember those times. Everything was good. As at that time, the value of a naira was so strong. And as at that time also, the civil servant's salary was even much more higher than what people were earning in oil companies. But the question becomes, how did we get here? How we got here, well, first of all, was that root intervention, the military intervention. And that changed the whole of our psyche. And that brought in corruption and fraud into the system. So now that we have gotten to where we have gotten, it is also the same government to a large extent that will play a significant role in getting us back to where they took us from. There are a lot of intervention measures that the government can do that would change things for us. Because like you said, it's true. The children are observing that their fathers after 35 years are not doing well, but the government can also play a significant role in getting us to where we are. If actually they want, to cause a sort of orientation in the value system of the nation. Because the people are, we don't justify crime. It is bad. We're experiencing economic hardship. There's a high level of unemployment. But then does that mean that people have to go into armed robbery, people have to go into kidnapping, people have to go into fraud? No. People don't have to do that. All right? But the question is that we have to look at, a large chunk of the activity, of the large chunk of the things that will be done here are things that will be anchored by the government. How will the government, reroute us from this position to what it used to be, or something close to what it used to be? Government has a significant role to play.
That's great, Prof. While we are still going on this Q&A section, I want to encourage everyone, if you have a question, just put it up there. Prof is going to answer many questions. We still have more good time to really go through some questions. But Prof, before I come back to you, let me read one of the questions that we have here. The participant wrote here, Mr. Patrick Wogu said, you said before now, our civil and public servant value were excellent or top-notch. Will you say that it was as a result of job security very low acceptance of mediocrity, the population watching and reporting ills noticed, etc. Today, it is not the same. Ideology has really changed. Okay, today ideology has really changed, and because Westernism, tribalism, religion has taken root. Yeah, like I said before, Prof, really look at it back in the days. You know, the funny thing about it is that I'm looking at the Nigeria, and we do so many comparisons of back in the days. And we don't really want to look at we look at one aspect of back in the days, the result of back in the days, how things were good. But most times we don't really talk about the things that actually make those results the way it was. Because if people, you look at the question that they asked, this question that we asked here, I want to hear your view concerning it. Because this back in the days, comparing back in the days and now, are we really just going to blame everything on people's action, or we're going to look at other things that actually surrounds their action that make them do what they do?
Yes, you look, first of all, you look at it from a social perspective and the economic perspective. To a large extent, you know, the size of a man's pocket determines his reactions. How a man reacts, to a large extent, depends on the size of his pocket. As at that time, there was value for money. As at that time, there was some level of contentment. As at that time, there was dignity in the labor that we did. So the economic factor came in as at that particular point in time. The contributions that the economy had on the psyche of people back then was very, 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 very significant, because people who were working had value for their money. You could send their children to school. In fact, as at that time, it was even regarded that if you have somebody that was in civil service, a parent that was in civil service, you were highly respected, because whatever the civil servants were being paid, catered for their needs, and they had more than enough to save. Today, it is not like that anymore. Even if one earns as much as 5 million in a month, it barely can take care of your needs. And as at that time as well, you know, if it is calculated that you did fraud in my community, we see it as stealing. Immediately you are calculated to be a thief. Nobody associates with you. It was not celebrated. It was not accepted. Society did not accept it as norms, as a norm or value of the society. It was regarded like some sort of anathema. People did not prize that as a way of life. Fraud, or to garnish it, they call it fraud, but in my community, we see it as stealing. That person who gets involved in anything that is not right is a thief. And because society abhors it then, people did not celebrate it. But when there was a change in the dynamics of the economy, when there was a change in the work base of the people, people had to resort to several other means of making money just to help out a living. So you cannot talk about the past without regards to the economic factors that explained why people perceive or believe things the way they did then, and the social factors. You know, the psychology of the man now has changed. And what explains that change in the psychology is the size of his income, the size of his pocket. You know, what people used to value or regard as something that was bad in the past is celebrated now. If you even look at even our young girls today, they will prefer to want to keep relationship with Yahoo boys than those who are involved in civil service jobs.
9 to 5.
Because the financial base of Yahoo boys is larger and stronger and more promising than those who are involved in civil service. So to a large extent, the economical factor has a significant role to play.
Okay, Prof, I like the fact, I like this angle that we just entered. because I see some interesting questions. There's really one I would have really loved to read here. Let me just read. He said, I think this is from Afusat. I think it should be a she, Miss Afusat, if I'm right. He said, thank you, Prof, for your very insightful delivery. I have been reflecting over all the things that you mentioned. My concern is, with the current level of distortion we have across the country and other aspects of our lives in Nigeria today, practically, how can those things you mentioned be achieved? Is it the executive that got there with bags of corruption, the legislative that are not concerned about the masses, or the judiciary that appears to be for the highest bidder? Who should champion this reorientation? Prof, while you are talking about that, let me go back again to the future of Nigeria, the children that are coming in.
Sorry, I would have loved to answer that question. I would have loved to answer that question before you go.
I wanted to add it to this one, this question. I want to add something to this question.
Okay.
Looking at this one, these ones are the people that were mentioned here. They are adults already. Now, adding again to the thing you talked about, civil education and the rest things, where we expect characters to be formed in our leaders. Looking at our curriculum, that most of the things we are learning from our curriculum are not even our history. They are history of other countries. How do those things form this value? Who is going to champion this drive? Is it these leaders that are old, or the children that are coming up? Who is going to champion it?
Okay. First of all, I want to say thank you to the person that asked that question. The executives are corrupt, they are thieves. They got into that place through very terrible means. So they must maintain the status quo because they are benefiting from the status quo. The judiciary, like I said in my work, has already been captured. So the people that will cause this change must be we, the people. We. It must be a radical approach if we must get back our country. The people must ensure that the electoral process is not flawed. The people must ensure that the selection system is not contaminated. The people must ensure that the people that represent them are those chosen among them that has the integrity and the required character trait. Because we say the executive will do anything. No, they won't. You know, there's this theory that anybody that benefits from the system in the event of a change is the person that loses most. So they will always ensure that they keep the status quo so the system is not disrupted. So the executive will not want to do anything. Of course, the judiciary is benefiting from the system. So it's we, the masses, you know, who are suffering the brunt of this whole thing, that must ensure that we'll make concerted effort, consensual effort to ensure that there's a radical change in the system by ensuring that we hold these people accountable for all of their actions and inactions. We ensure that we put their tails on fire so that they can sit up. You know, this whole thing is not something that will just happen overnight. As we keep doing what we are doing, putting them to test, interrogating the process, and establishing and registering our displeasures with certain things, with what they are doing, a time will come when people will like, no, we have taken this nonsense enough, and that this is the person we want to represent us. I know when we choose somebody amongst us to represent us, we can be sure that we hold him accountable. In essence, or in response to your question, it is not the executive, it's not the legislatures. Is it the legislatures at the National Assembly that will want to do anything? They won't do anything. So it is we, the masses, that must ensure that this change takes place, that there's this value reorientation, if we must have our value system back the way it used to be.
Prof, that's great. That is actually a great insight here. But I really want to go more into this value orientation, because I
was to answer the civic education. Yeah.
Yes.
You know, a lot of times I've had calls to explain to those who structure the curriculum at school, that today what I observe is that education is not longer for use. Education is just for certificate. In essence, people just go to school to get certificate. They design things that is not relevant to our economy. And to that extent, most of the things that are being done does not have any serious relevance to our economy. The civic education, like I said in the last discussion, as we keep emphasizing this thing, I did civic education growing up as a child, and they tell you things about the nationalists as a little child. Then we were told things about the nationalists. This is a person we did that. Did and we just as a child, you want to be like them. When you have an opportunity, you want to demonstrate something that will make people feel that this guy is patriotic. Those kind of things are no longer, and that is engraved in our psyche till tomorrow. Because as at that time, if you do what seems patriotic, the system respects you, the system rewards you, the system praises you. So it was there, but that thing is no longer taught in school. And we realizing the importance of value to the growth and development of our economy must, as a matter of importance and urgency, insist that it should be reinstituted in our curriculum.
Okay, now, Prof, you're getting with me, because the truth about it is this: this value orientation. I still remember the days where it has been a national concern, and there's been a national discourse of we've been talking about value orientation. But I still have some thoughts I really want to share. But before I come to I think I have a question here. I'm going to, please bear with me. I will actually censor the question, because I don't think some of the way it is actually nice for me to read all. But let me just read it this way. Dear Prof, it's actually for Mr. Charles Oyema. Dear Prof, many thanks to on the delivery. My concern is that your solution to orientation won't work. The academia that will champion the reorientation education is flawed. Well, okay, these are that part, playing rules, okay. You say it's flawed, okay. Purposing holds sways. Imagine a CEO playing by the rules, the company will sink. That is, if the CEO plays by the rules, the company will sink. Why? I don't see, okay, let me leave that part. Let me leave that part aside. So actually, I think I should take it back to what we are talking about. Now, he is saying that if you play by the rules, now, let me be more practical. We are in a country where directors are all in this platform. They want to do corporate governance, and we have to play by the rules. Now, you are looking to produce your tax, your tax clearance and the rest things. You want to put your books right. Now, you need to get some jobs to do to get those things. But funny enough, if I go with this question, that if I understand Mr. Charles' question, if you want to play by the rules, all of us are we all sign no corruption, no bribery, no this, no that. But we know that most times it is what the rules entails. Because even doing business, I was talking with what's it called? NAFDAC. For a small scale business, to register a small scale business, to register one is, I think they said, is it, if I'm right, it'll be 34,000 naira for one. And the analysis, the way they analyzed it, you now ask, how will a small scale business person actually meet up to this registration? Where, for instance, I'm going to register a company, I bake cake, I'm a cake vendor.
Hello? Hello?
If I'm going to register the same, yes, sir.
Okay,
if I'm going to register the same vanilla cake, 10 inches, I pay higher. Now, only vanilla cake that I'm going to pay, vanilla cake that I'm doing as business, inches 34. The subsequent one is that same inches, I pay 24, 24, 24. Then when I add let's say red velvet to it, round again, I start again from 34, 24, 24 for each sizes. Now you want to do business. How are you going to do all this one? If you are playing by the rules, who's going to pay for all those costs at the end of the day? So this is something I think I want you to say something about it.
You see, it is very unfortunate for directors, it's very unfortunate for business owners. You know, a lot of things have gone wrong in the system, such that if you don't do things that is not, in fact, I was telling somebody somewhere one day, was my students, I was telling my PhD students that, you know, if you were to go into an environment where you see people doing, maybe somebody is playing Shabara, a particular music, Shabara, that we know reign in the 90s. And you get down there and start wondering why they're still playing Shabarang when that music is out of date. In fact, that was, you know, a music that reigned in 1990. And, you know, the new songs we have today is that of Davido, Burna Boys, and stuff like that. And the person is celebrating his Shabarang. And you turn and look like, are this okay? It is you, the person, who is asking that question. That is not okay. Because the man is in his world. And in his world, that is what happens. That is when that music is making sense to him. Now, why do I say that? It's unfortunate, because if you decide to do things right, especially in the business field, you know, you may end up not having anything to do. But as bad as that is, we must start from somewhere. Even when you have to do what you think is not right, just to ensure that you have a business that survives, keep complaining about it. As you keep talking and discussing and, you know, establish your displeasure about a particular thing, you know, with time, the system, the agencies, you know, that are constantly doing that thing, one day we come to the realization that this man, though he gets involved just to ensure that he does business, is not comfortable with this whole process. You know, we must make effort. We must make effort that will start from somewhere. We mustn't just allow it as, take it as norms. You know, I understand, especially for the business owners, I understand the challenges they go through, you know, that they're not willing to play by the rules and that nothing will happen. And, you know, we now have businesses, these people need courts to do what they have to do. But then, even when, you know, you do not have an option, complain about it.
Okay, let me take a question from I guess this is my chairman, Engineer Kuve. He said, will it be possible for us to ever be a sovereign nation, not heavily dependent on foreign nation? And what do you think is the way forward for us to get there?
Yeah, you know, like development is a process, all right? Development is a process. It may not be during our time, but if you observe, the political consciousness is growing. The kind of things that are happening today, the kind of attractions, especially on the cyberspace, the kind of engagements that are happening today was not there like that in 1999 when Obasanjo was there. People just looked at things and just kept quiet, like, this is not our business. But today, people are beginning to ask questions. People are beginning to interrogate the process. People are beginning to establish resistance. So at a point, we will continue like this, but it will get to a point when we actually have our sovereignty, all right, without interference from any foreign nation. It is just a question of time.
Okay. Let me take another question here from Mrs. Lucy Okoko. She said, thank you, sir, for the presentation. How do you get this solution across to our leaders? Secondly, if the leaders are not recognizing the national value themselves, what do we do?
It's painful. It's really painful. One, we can get these things to them through a communique. I should expect that after this whole discussion that, you know, the Chartered Institute of Directors should be able to do a communique to send this paper to the government. But even if you send it to them, they will just throw it somewhere. Like I said before, anything that does not put money in their pocket, they are not interested in it. But we must constantly engage the system. We must constantly establish resistance. You know, there comes a time when, you know, as we keep establishing resistance, showing them our displeasure, one day somehow they will have cause to listen. One day somehow amongst us, we may have somebody, representation, all right, or a leadership that will give us adequate representation. But wherever we are, from whatever position we are, we should be establishing resistance and be making these suggestions. As much as we are talking to people who knows who amongst us will become a better leader someday. So we should keep doing all of these things. If we want to send it as a communique, good and fine, all right? There's no crime in trying. But it is wrong to stay at a place. We should keep making effort from different means. Somehow, one day, we'll achieve we'll get to where we want to be.
Okay, while we bring these questions while we wrap up the question, I don't know, ask this, Prof. Looking at
moderator, sorry,
okay,
I want to take you back to a question I think the Prof would like to answer. I don't know what you missed it. He said, my question is, how can we change the toxic mindset of they have stolen money, so let me secure my own? Such mindset continues the circle of corruption. This is asked by Chidera Okechukwu. I think you missed it. It's you know, I think that's something that will make a lot of meaning to a lot of people here.
Yes, I got the question. They have stolen money. Let me also get my own. We must discourage that kind of mindset. You know, when you want to make your advancing solution to sociological problems, you don't want to do what they have done. If we must go forward in this country, what we should rather do is to see how we can condemn what they have done, where possible, see what complain so much that it will bring awareness and call the attentions of the necessary authorities to get the money, the stolen monies back, but not to want to get our own. Because immediately you want to get our own, it means, of course, you've joined the bandwagon and want to do exactly what people are doing. The efforts we are making, the whole essence of the suggestions I have made is to take another route to enhance our economic development. So we must not be like them. Everybody should not be like them. When we see what is bad, people should complain that a particular course of action is bad and not to do what we complain about.
Thank you, Prof. Thank you, Prof. While we're still talking, I want to ask a question, Prof. I think this one has a lot to do. We have directors here. I wish this is not actually an open forum where every category of people would have been there. You know, we are looking at children or the younger generation. They learn a lot by looking at the older generation. With the present day Nigeria, with everybody, I believe that everybody in Nigeria knows what is right and what is wrong. Everybody knows what is right and what is wrong. And with what they see, where morality no longer is of no importance. Let me put it that way. It has been watered down. Let me know the importance. Morality has been watered down. People who are celebrated, people who are acknowledged or rewarded with what the younger generation see. And looking at the present Nigeria that we are, Prof, what do you think is the best thing to tell the directors that are on this program right now to build as model for the younger Nigerians? And what do you say will help that next generation not to continue in this state where we find ourselves, looking at our topic, reorienting people? What do you think is going to be the way forward as an advice to us?
You see, there is in every man the consciousness of value. I think if you look at the different dimensions or the perceptions of value that I give, that's the second one. I want to take you back to that. Every man is there in every man, the consciousness or that intuitive feeling of what is value. Even when an armed robber is stealing, he knows that this thing he's doing is not right. But a lot of the time, he does what he does because either the system values it, he does what he does because he just wants to make money, he does what he does so they can live in affluence and whatever. But he knows deep down in him that whatever he's doing is not right. So in every man, there is that consciousness of morality. That's the anti-natural perception of value. In every man, there is the desire to do what is good. In every man, there is desire to do what the system, our cosmology values or regards as value. Now, we know that the entire system, the social space is contaminated. But as a people, irrespective of the challenges we have, irrespective of how corrupt the system is, we must, of necessity, try as much as we can to do what we think is regarded as morally sound. You know, somehow, someday, you may be thinking that people are not observing. But by any stroke of chance, that person who in the heat, in the midst of all the corrupt practices, in the midst of all the things that people do that is not right, that he himself does what is right, somehow people will always make reference to that person as a man of integrity. So for the younger generation, yes, they are involved in cybercrime and all sorts of social vices. But deep down in them, they know that what they're doing is morally wrong. But as we keep doing as a person, as we keep doing, we must start from any space we are as a people, as a person, as an individual. This is wrong, it's bad. Let me tell you what I do. When I drive to where there is traffic light, whether or not there is people, I stop. If the red lights are on, several cars will drive past me. I will still be there. But you see, after some time, you see some person will start queuing. That's how life is. We know that what the system, the operators of the system, what they are doing is bad. We complain and try to do what is right. Somehow, if one and every of us try as much as possible to do this, the younger generation that is have in them the intuition to do what is right will one day start copying, and that is where the change will start from. So we must do what is right, even if it is just you doing it. As a director, you must do what is right. When we have to do, even when we're forced by the system to do what we think does not sit well with our moral values, we should come. Like, for instance, you have to do business, and the necessary agencies are telling you you must pay this, must pay that. You know it's wrong, but if you don't do it, you will not get whatever you need to do. Do it, but complain. Let them know that what they are doing is wrong.
Thank you, Prof. I want to believe it has been a very insightful discussion with Professor Nedon and distinguished directors here present. It's really a great time. I wish we have more time to take more questions and for this program. I really want to believe that, Prof, this is a good job, a good delivery. On behalf of the Institute, I want to say thank you for coming. Thank you for your time. I'm not actually going to be the one giving the vote of thanks, but at this time, I just want to say thank you for this speech. It was a wonderful one.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, sir. So at this junction, I have to bring forth the DG CEO of the Institute, closing remark. It's my honor to actually welcome I call him my Oga, Mr. Dele Alimi. Thank you, sir.
I hope he's still on call. I hope he's still here. Moderator, can you see him from your end? I'm not seeing him here.
No, I can't see him, but I think he's going to be joining us. But before he comes, Prof, they want to give us more time to discuss more. Because
Okay,
I enjoyed this topic.
Let's talk. Let's
I
talk.
enjoyed this topic. I enjoyed this topic. And value orientation. But Prof, please let me ask a question. As a prof, I mean, going through your resume and seeing how widely read you've actually done, and really great, Prof. What's the biggest challenge you've ever had as one who mentors young people, who interact with people? What's the biggest challenge you've ever had when it comes to value orientation on people?
You know, especially, let me situate that my discussion within the academics. You know, you put all efforts to train, students, you put all efforts to lead them through, in their career paths in life, in the academics, and you just see them not regarding what you have done. So you have done as anything, and a student walking up to you and like, sir, I don't even need all these things. I'm only doing it because I just want to have the certificate. When I finish this thing, I want to start Yahoo. It's a very demoralizing, devastating experience I've had from students who that ordinarily, if the system was good, if the system was promising, would have naturally want to go into ventures that will promote development or promote, productivity, or they just want to go into crime, because that is what the system values. They want to go into crime so that they can, display wealth and all those stuff. It's very challenging to see a student, a brilliant one in that case, that you think you had high hopes for, that you were thinking that probably someday they're going to take battings from us and all of those stuff, telling you that they will naturally, because of how defective the system is, they want to go into cyber crimes. It's frustrating. As a teacher, it's very, very frustrating.
Wow, you see, that's actually because this is actually a very important topic, and I believe that it's the challenge that comes even from the home down to the society, transferring proper value to children, transferring proper value to staffs. Now you are dealing with the workforce where people no longer, in short, long service award is seen as how those long service at work is not appreciated anymore by the younger generation. Being true to you, they see it as a waste of time. That why will I work for you for 35 years and get a fridge at the end of the day? I mean, you are dealing with a generational shift in ideology, and this is actually a challenge. When there's a question here that my chairman of the committee just popped in here, I would really like to read it for Prof. He said, Prof, thank you for the wonderful delivery. But my concern is the emphasis on military intervention as being at the root of where we are today. However, the question needs to be asked: why did the military intervene? The behavior of civilians, government attracted those interventions, particularly with respect to tribalism, fueled corruption that was prevalent at that time. The military intervention played on the deep-rooted malice and seek acceptability by playing up to their card. My view is that tribalism is at the basis. I don't know, is at the base of our problem. Okay, he said we need to move away from state of origin to place of birth as a way of dealing with tribalism. I agree totally with that, Ms. Prof, please. I totally believe that part of our problem is that column form, state of origin. It causes a lot of things. I want you to say more about it.
Well, let me tell you something. Let me explain something. You know, in one of my graduate programs, I did a work on the impact of quality of work life on productivity, on additional productivity. And the course of my research, it was actually research work, I discovered that, you know, there are a lot of factors that explain the differentials between the output of an African man and the output of a foreign, you know, the Western worker. And one of those factors that explain the differentials, because after all, we believe in what we call the universality of management, which believes that management is the same everywhere in the world. If it is the same, if the principles of management is the same everywhere in the world, it follows therefore that output should have also been the same. But you see, there are differentials in the output level. Now, what explains that differential? A lot of things explain it. One is our cultural factor. And that cultural factor is what I call the stranger's notion. The stranger's notion. The stranger's notion believes that an African man, anytime he leaves the place of his birth, sees himself as a stranger. Anytime you leave the place where you were born, you see yourself as a stranger. And that perception is carried into the work the African man does. Now, whether we like it or not, you know, in the spirit of togetherness and communism in Africa, also, you know, breed this issue of tribalism. Because unless an African man leaves the shores of his country, when an African man, when a Nigerian man leaves the shores of his country, he sees every other Nigerian man as his brother. But within Nigeria, there's this dichotomy between the North, the West, the Igbo tribe, and all of those stuff. That impacts seriously. But, you know, whether we like it or not, these are things that will not easily go away. But what I've always advised is that we work. Let's have a collective strength in our diversity. As much as we try, as much as possible, to discourage all of these excesses, because if you even look at the sociological factor that explains that first military coup, you see, it was merely malice, like you said. It wasn't much more of corruption. It was very malice. Yeah. But within our First Republic, like I stated in my work, people had value. People regarded these values. People had values for what I call there was truth, there was faithfulness, there was honesty, there was integrity. People did not just get into things that they think will contaminate their values and their beliefs. Even if there was corruption, it was not on a mega scale like we have here today. People stole, but it was something they did, you know, in the secret. Today, corruption, corrupt practices is everywhere. It cries to the high heaven. Nobody hides about it anymore. If you go and look for jobs today, the person who is offering you the job will tell you, okay, this job, this is the what. I know that this is the profit you are going to make. So out of this, I'm going to take 40%, and give me 60. It's not easy. The policeman on the road stands there, collects your money, gives you change. It's not easy. You understand? But this is where not common in that First Republic. You can't completely rule out corruption. But it was on a, you know, on a minor scale. And there was fear that what people were doing was wrong as at that particular point in time. But the people that enshrined this whole thing, lack of accountability and corrupt practices into the psyche, was the military. Even, I wouldn't know how old you are, but if you even check, Corruption was not, I remember in the second, I was in primary school when, during the Buhari's, Buhari Idi Agbon's war against indiscipline.
Discipline.
There was fear. People did not steal like that.
Yes.
When Ibrahim Babangida came, corruption came on large scale. People could steal and nothing happened. You know, so it was just like you said before, somebody started thinking, okay, let me also get a piece of the cake. And now, if you occupy public office and you don't steal, your community will not celebrate you. Because after the other person went, stole, why did you go and not steal? And when you steal, it's our stealing. Even when he steals and people are condemning him, it's people who celebrate him that is our own. So it wasn't like that before. Like I said, in ancient past, if you do anything that has criminal connotation, there was shame. Your people will practically almost disband you. They will look at it as, in fact, it was not even seen as it was not also seen as bribing. It was seen as stealing. My people used to see you collecting money from the public or doing this thing as stealing. And that stigma goes with not just you, your family. So your family will ensure that you don't do anything to spoil their name. That is what it was. Yes, fine, it's true. You know, the tribalism has its role to play. But what breeds all of these things are corruption. If you are doing what is right, if you must do things and things must follow the normal process the way it should go, whether the man is a Yoruba man or an Hausa man or is an Igbo man, he gets the job based on merit. But because of corruption, all of these things are distorted. And that's why I'm emphasizing.
Thank you so much. Moderator, I think at this point, I think I'm going to hold brief for the DG. He's engaged in some other assignment at the headquarters. And I will just make a brief closing remarks, and then the chairman of our programs committee will take over. All right. Okay, so just before I take the closing remarks, I just have to correct an impression. Innocent Junior Akuvwe is actually a young director who is my son, not myself, that asked that question. So, moderator, just know that. And one of my friends, Charles Onyema, is a bit worried that he doesn't see any hope for this country unless the leadership is changed completely. And I think that is the essence of this whole webinar. So, Prof, you got a lot of work to do because we're going to come back to you some other time, you know. So, and carry everybody's concerns to you. I'm sure you've seen all the questions. Most of them you reply offline and send back to us.
Okay.
So, yeah. So once again, it's been a wonderful day today. I appreciate everyone that has signed in for this program. And I want to invite the chairman of the committee, Pastor Kingsley Akuma, to please give his his vote of thanks, then we'll wrap it up. Thank you.
Thank you very much, my chairman. I've thoroughly enjoyed myself. This is a very topical issue, and I believe the debate will go on for a long time. But let me restrict myself to the task I've been given, which is to, first of all, I want to thank God for the life He has given us and the ability to attend this webinar. Because without that life, an ability won't be here. So my first thanks goes to God Almighty and for the wisdom to select this topic, a critical issue at this time of our national life. Let me most profoundly thank the President and Chairman of the Governing Council of the Chartered Institute of Directors, Alhaji Tijani Borodo, FCIoD, who is able to be with us in spite of his very busy schedule. I want to again put on note that he's joining us just as he was arriving at Algiers. We appreciate you, sir. We don't take your presence for granted. We really say thank you for honoring us. The President gives us confidence and encouragement to continue in the task you have given to us. I also want to appreciate the second vice president of the Institute, Mrs. Amina Oyebola, for her ability to take time off her busy schedule to be with us at this webinar. Madam President, thank you very, very much. Other members of the Governing Council of the Institute here present, we want to appreciate you. Thank you for being with us. Of course, our special thanks goes to our host and chairman of the Portharcourt Zone, our branch chairman, Engineer Akuve. Thank you for your able leadership and allowing this webinar to hold on this very wonderful topic. Let me thank the keynote speaker, Professor Richard Nedum, for a wonderful, wonderful job that you've done. Let me take a rain check here that I will contact you offline on my thoughts, and then we can on what what I think is responsible key issue. We'll take it offline. So let me use the opportunity to take a rain check to have some discussion with you on that issue. Let me thank the DG and CEO of the Charity of Directors, Mr. Dele Alimi, for taking time out from this club to be here. We noted your presence, even though you had to quickly go and attend some functions. But thank you for being with us. Your presence gives us hope, gives us encouragement. I want to thank the Vice Chairman of the Portharcourt Zone and the webinar coordinator for a marvelous job that you have done in coordinating this webinar, Mr. Kufre Abasi Oba. Thank you for a human job you have done. Fellows and members of the Institute that have been with us, thank you. Executive Committee members of the Portharcourt Zone, we thank you for taking time out to be with us. Valued and esteemed directors of the Institute, both in Portharcourt and elsewhere, that have joined us in this webinar, we appreciate you. Your attendance has made the difference. I also want to especially thank members of the Programs and Events Committee for their sacrifices of time and resources to see that this webinar happens, particularly members of the Secretariat led by Mr. Patrick Opute. They have not rested. Their publicity has been firing, and we can see the results. So at the last count, we had over 62 people in attendance. We want to appreciate all of you and hope that the issues raised in this webinar and the lessons learned will be brought to bear by us in our little and wide sphere in achieving value orientation. Say, light up your little corner, and before you know it, the light will shine for. Let's not be discouraged. The lessons we have learned here, please, as directors, as achievers and movers of society, let's begin to put that into place. Thank you all, and I wish you all the best in your various endeavors as we begin to place values where they are needed to turn our society around, achieve good corporate governance, and therefrom achieve economic growth for Nigeria. On behalf of the Institute, I want to say thank you and God bless you all. So on that note, I want to bring this webinar, Value Reorientation, Implications for Governance and Economic Development, to a close. And I want you to keep your calendars open for future engagements that will be coming up with. I'm sure, I can assure you that it will be very, very educative and exciting. Thank you again. Have a wonderful evening and the rest of the week.
Thank you.
Thank you.